Today, the populations of America has reached roughly 227 millions of people. It consists of people who came from all parts of the world and of different races. African Americans particularly are the second largest racial group after whites in the United States of America. When we talk about America, many believe it to be a country full with opportunities, a promised land that could help them achieve success. These contribute to the increasing numbers of its populations. The immigrants, for example, they run to America to protect themselves, to escape from political persecutions and oppressions, to set themselves free from ruthless injustice. How ironic that it is not the same case as the first Africans who were brought to America by force and treated not much different like an animal. Slavery was an outrageous and reprehensible part of the history of the United States. The cruelty of treatments towards slavery has inspired many writers such as Colson Whitehead, Alice Walker, and Harriet Beecher to write their books, which are Underground Railroad, The Color Purple, and Uncle Tom's Cabin. The issue of oppression, inequality, and violence towards slavery are illustrated in all three novels. The remarkable works have even made into film adaptations. Hence, this video is going to discuss about the three books, what kind of similarities and differences they share, and how does the issue of slavery is depicted in them. Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. It's a snapshot of the history of slavery, scientific racism, and abolition. It tells the story of enslaved woman, Cora, and her attempts to escape from slavery. In the novel, Cora, with the help of Caesar, an enslaved boy who works in Randall plantations, helps her to escape. She has run away for a long time and moves from one country to another using the Underground Railroad. While escaping, she has faced the reality of America and the status of colored people in every region. The railroad in the story is actually a metaphor, a literal train with unknown conductors and sporadic branches that just might lead to freedom. In the story, Cora, who has never experienced freedom since she was born, struggled to her best ability to escape and be free. While escaping, she has been chased by a slave catcher who was paid by her master. It is a law that every escaped slave must be returned to their master and no one can help them, even the abolition. Anyone who involved with the slave will be punished. Such law can also be seen in Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher. Uncle Tom's Cabin and Underground Railroad is similar as the settings are set during the protests against the fugitive slave law of 1850, in which Americans are prohibited to help and give aid towards black people. Uncle Tom's character in the novel is depicted as a pious and dignified slave. In the first part of the novel, the author illustrates how the slaves and masters have a positive relationship as the master does not abuse and mistreat them. But even under kind masters, slaves suffer. Tom was so when his master was financially struggling to pay his debt. When Tom was sold to the new owner, who was brutal and cruel, he was whipped to death as he refuses to tell about the runaway slaves. However, Tom maintains a steadfastly Christian attitude toward his own suffering and forgives the evil act of his master. The story is drawn from the author's own personal experience during the 1830s and 40s while living in Cincinnati, Ohio, which was a destination for those escaping slavery in Kentucky and other southern states. In Uncle Tom's Cabin, she describes her suffering experiences by enslaved people, where they become the commodities as if they were a product for economic use, or in other terms, according to Marxist reifications. In the novel, the author also highlights the moral power of women. Although Uncle Tom's Cabin was written before the widespread growth of the women's rights movements of the late 18th century, the reader can regard the book as a specimen of early feminism. The text portrays women as morally committed and courageous than men. The writer implies a parallel operations between the operations of black and the operations of women, as in the character of Eliza Harris, Mr. Shelby's maid. After she known that her master wanted to sell her son, her motherly love forced her to make a spectacular escape by crossing on the patches of ice on the Ohio River. Unlike the two novels, which was set during the era of slavery in 1850, The Color Purple by Alice Walker is set after the Emancipation Proclamations. An executive order issued on 1st January 1863 to set free slaves in all portions of the United States. Even after the enactment, not much change was shown, and this is especially true for the African American women. The color purple represents the fate of African American women who are subjugated and oppressed by men. In other words, it illustrates how sexism and subordination widen the gap between African American men and women after the Emancipation Proclamations. The Color Purple is centered around an African American woman, Celie, who is forced into an abusive marriage with an African American man. Celie's husband, with his sexist conduct, always treats her as he himself would have been treated before 1863, that is, as a slave, to keep Celie subservient and obedient. While suffering decades of abuse at the hands of her husband and being told who she is and who she cannot be, Celie struggles to find her identity in a society where African American women are unceasingly objectified and constrained. It is really sad to think intolerance, violence, and physical abuse that derived from slavery existed even after emancipation. African American women succeeded in freeing themselves from cruelty and violence of their white masters, yet they were still slaves in their free homes. They were slaves of their black husbands, who were often very abusive and violent. The author, Walker, wants to teach the readers on the basis of Celie's transformation throughout the story that a woman must find her inner strength, imitating those black women in the past who, even in slavery, would not allow their creativity to be dampened and controlled, or their souls and bodies to be violated. All the novels share a similar element that connects them with each other in many ways, like the depictions of discrimination due to race and gender that influence distinctions attitude of slaveholders towards slaves. People in South America were convinced that not everyone in the American society is equal. There are those who are the rulers, which is the whites, and those who are ruled, the blacks, as well as the power of men over women. The three novels depict the endless anguish of beatings, sexual abuse, and even murder that the black had suffered. The history of African Americans is rich in beauty, but also in tragedy and trauma. Discrimination absolutely contradicts with what Islam has taught, the equality of human beings and how everyone is the same despite their social status, race, gender, and age. Prophet Muhammad said, "There is no superiority for an Arab over a non-Arab, nor for a non-Arab over an Arab. Neither is the white superior over the black, nor is the black superior over the white, except by piety. Hence, regardless of one's race, every individual is the same in the eye of Allah.